Hello everyone, I hope you've had a great day so far and that you're doing well. For this video, and by the time it's published, the first unboxing and review video of a Transformer for 2023, here we have Core Class Rattrap. And this version of Rattrap is from the Transformers War for Cybertron Trilogy line, specifically the Kingdom components, and I believe came out around 2021. As most of my Kingdom stuff from the Predacon side also came out in. So recently the Season 1 Predacons was finished, culminating with Beast Wars Megatron wrapping that up. So I thought I would switch over and basically target the Season 1 Maximals. And I thought, let's start with the core, go work our way up. Which I believe will cap out at Voyager, thankfully enough. Beast Wars Megatron being a later class was a interesting one when doing some of the final videos. But anyway, enough about Megatron and the Predacons. We're here for the Maximals. So here we have the front of the packaging for Core Class Rattrap. Back in the day when plastic was still a thing, and you could clearly see the figure through the plastic window. So there we have Rattrap in his robot mode. He does have one weapon accessory, which is to be expected. In terms of the actual card stock, so we just have Rattrap in his beast mode there, with a nice shot of the work. So that's the front. In terms of the back, what do we have? So on the back of the packaging, like we've seen in previous Kingdom stuff, we have Rattrap in his robot mode, and then Rattrap in his beast mode. 18 steps conversion, which actually isn't too bad for a core class. And the interesting little gimmick of let's attach weapons to beast modes. Works okay when you're an actual Cybertronian or even Earth mode vehicle, I guess, but I still can't fathom why we would do it to animals, but okay. Yeah, it seems weird. That's me. So now that we've had a look at the packaging for Rattrap, I'll open up the packaging, then we can have a better look at Rattrap, his accessory, and go through the figure review, beast mode review, and final thoughts. And with Rattrap out of his packaging, what do we have? So we have Rattrap, as to be expected, his accessory, which we saw through his window packaging, and his instruction manual, which is kind of funny that it's just only slightly taller than he is. So Rattrap, we'll just move you to the side for the time being. So in terms of his manual, so this will be 18 steps, so definitely a far cry from his very first original toy, which was basically a press a button and he pretty much opened up and transformed. Although Rattrap has been fortunate to have a few more iterations since the original Beast Wars. I believe Legends he may have had one. I can't remember now. Which is ironic because I'm pretty sure I have the figure, but anyway. Instructions. So it looks like he will have some storage options for his weapon in his beast mode, which is pretty cool, as well as being able to hold it. Otherwise, transformation wise, it's not too bad. It actually could pass over for some of his steps from his actual on-screen self, somewhat, but for 18 steps it's actually fairly involved. And we also do have the step to show attaching of the weapon to the side of his beast mode, which I still think is really weird. So that was the manual. In terms of Rattrap's main weapon, so it's definitely not a bad representation of his primary weapon back in the show, well, at least the original show. In terms of attachments, so we know that he can obviously hold it in his hand. So that's a good example of Rattrap holding it. Now we also know that, at least in his, you can also store it in the back of his beast mode, which is actually pretty cool. And yeah, for the most part, you don't know it's there. If I remember correctly, in his original toy from the 90s, his weapon also flipped over as well and then hid quite nicely. So that was his main weapon, which for the time being we will just put off screen. So Rattrap, can you stand on your own 2 feet? Indeed you can. In terms of Rattrap, so here is Rattrap from the front, side, the back, his other side, another top down, a bottom up, and just on a bit of a angle. In terms of colours, I would say they're quite accurate to Rattrap's colour scheme, so we do have his mouse colours coming through still quite predominantly. His upper legs and his arms and most of his head have that. I'm actually not too sure what it is. I almost feel like saying it's some type of like weird pumpkin orange. But the colours are definitely good. His feet, both his forefeet and his feet are in a bit more of a lighter flesh tone colour, which is to be expected for a mouse. His head is quite well detailed. I'd say quite accurate to his on-screen representation. And speaking of detailing, I also like how his forearms also have the Maximal logo also on them, which we know, at least from the original Beast Wars, I can't remember if he did it in Kingdom, he had some additional weapons stored in his wrists, namely blocks of C4. So that's look at his robot mode, some of his colours. In terms of articulation, well, before I do articulation, he does have a little bit of kibbling, but I would say it's relatively secure. Some of it does actually attach his actual arms, which is fair enough. But the actual back bit doesn't seem to be flying around too much. Could it be better well hidden? Probably. But being a core class, it's actually honestly not that bad. Even his original 90s toy wasn't that clean with hiding some of his outer mouse shells. So, to be honest, it's really not that bad. Especially he's a core class. If this was a masterpiece, then I'd probably expect there to be some type of hiding and a bit more of a tidy up of the kibble. But overall, definitely not too bad. On the scale of 1 to B127, definitely nowhere near B127. Anyway, articulation. Head will do a full 360. It does take a little bit of effort. Not sure if that means his head is intentionally quite stiff or if it's just mine. I did notice that on the back of his head he does have some of that extra texturing for his beast mode coming through. It's very cool. But yes, his head will only be able to do a 360 rotation. There's no up or down motion there. In terms of his arms, and this will be interesting, so most figures tend to have their arms attached to the main body. Rattrap has his arms attached to parts of his mouse. Interesting. But in terms of articulation, his arm will still go out all the way that way, His arm will still, well, his arm can go all the way up, all the way down. Will not be able to do a 360 because of how it's connected in this ball socket up here, because to do a 360 would basically mean his arm is somehow phasing through his body. So he can pretty much do a, what is that, a 180 with his arm at the quote-unquote shoulder. In terms of his elbow, so he does have a standard elbow there, so he can do just over 90. Can obviously go back into its normal rested position. Can't really go any further out, well, further back. But because it's still a ball socket there, his arm does have the ability to go out, and it can do a full 360 once you've given enough clearance. Other than that, there's no real other movement in his arms. His arms will be the same for that. Nothing in the waist, which I guess is to be expected. If I put his arms out like that, yes, we do get to see a bit more of his little mouse wings. In terms of his legs, can he do a not a 360, can he do these full splits? He can. He can basically do 360 at the hip socket, which is fine. You do have to maneuver somewhat, but that's okay. Just don't do what I do and put his whole lower leg in reverse. So we've done the 360 at the hip, otherwise it can go all the way to the front, standard, almost all the way to the back before the upper leg impacts the back of his mouse. We already know about the outward, so that's not a problem. In terms of his knee, so standard knee joint there, which is pretty cool. It is a ball socket, so it can do some nice 360 once you bend it. You can also still do it when it's out straight as well. Yeah, there you go. And interestingly enough, there's also another 360 just underneath the knee. So you've also got some extra bending there as well, so that's actually pretty cool. So he's effectively almost got a 2 knee joint there. So that is really cool. And then lastly, he will have 360 at the ankles, as well as some up and down motions and things like that, based on what the ankle socket will allow. So overall, for a core class, I would say Rattrap is quite well articulated. Very nice. Doing the shorts for Rattrap in the upcoming days, which should be quite fun, especially seeing how well some of this articulation in the lower legs go. So that's the articulation of Rattrap in his robot mode. I would say overall, I'm actually quite impressed with what I've seen so far. A huge step up from his original 90s toy, which is really cool. Is it the best Rattrap toy? Without having his Legends toy within any form of reach, I can neither confirm or deny that. I know his Legends toy did have some good elements about it, but for a core class, I would say it's pretty darn good. So now that we've had a look at his robot mode, I will transform him into his beast mode. We can have a quick look at that, and no doubt probably have some final thoughts. And with Rattrap now in his beast mode. So it actually wasn't too bad to convert him over. One of the good things about Rattrap is there is a lot of tabbing of components, so that actually does go a really long way. And for sake of discussion, I have attached his weapon to the side of one of his back legs, and to be honest, yeah, a Cybertronian mouse or not, given the concept of the beast mode, it's just weird having that attached. But there you go. That is what the gun will look like when it's attached in the beast mode. Now, for the rest of the beast mode review, I will not have the gun attached. So, the side of Rattrap, the view from behind, the other side, front, top down, bottom up. Yes, that is Rattrap's head. Will Rattrap stand on his own 4 feet? Indeed he will. And then just a shot of Rattrap from a bit of the side of sorts. In terms of colours, so most of this is now pretty much just his beast mode colour with the grey predominantly coming through, which also explains why the grey on the back of his head is there, because that is the back of his head that we can see there. His feet have that fleshy pink tone, which is fine, and in terms of his underbelly, we do still see some of that orangey brown tan still coming through, e.g. his head, his arms and his upper legs. But for the most part, it's definitely not too bad. It does look a little bit weird from the back that his hands are still somewhat exposed, but it is what it is. In terms of movement, his mouse head has like the most smallest fraction of movement, but it's really nothing here or there. His mouse head is pretty much fixed pose. His tail has a little bit of movement as well, but once again, not too much. It's almost, I dare say, choken movement. Front legs are completely immobile. His feet, because they're also his feet in his robot mode, as we saw earlier, will have that ball socket in there, so the feet can move quite freely at that ball socket there. Otherwise, his back legs are... there's a little bit of articulation there, but I think they are supposed to generally be locked into position, especially with some of that little tabbing there to allow the... I mean, it's not fantastic tabbing. I mean, I've just untabbed it there, but it's pretty much a case of just tabbing the top of the... well, top of the knees, I dare say, into that, just to lock it all in to secure his beast mode. So, for a core class, definitely not expecting too much articulation in his beast mode compared to some of the deluxes that we saw from the Protocon side. But definitely a very nice, cute rendition of Rattrap. Now, Rattrap, we'll just put you over there. We'll put your gun over there. We'll bring your manual back into view. Final thoughts. In terms of your robot mode, I was quite thoroughly impressed, especially being a core class. We've got a good amount of articulation. The shoulders, we'll see if that's going to be a weird thing because your arms are not attached to your main torso, they're attached to the sides of your beast mode. But because there's the ball sockets there in the shoulders as well as the elbow, it didn't seem to suggest you had a lack of articulation, so not really a criticism. An interesting difference for that. In terms of criticisms with your robot mode, maybe the kibbling, but that's really neither here or there. I would say overall, your robot mode's actually pretty good, and as I mentioned a few times already, a significant step up from your original toy in the 90s. As for your beast mode, so the 18 odd steps transformation to get there was actually quite nice. I think one of the highlights is always being able to tab things into place. It does give it that nice little secure feel, so that was definitely a nice plus. critique-wise, it's a shame that you don't have a little bit more articulation in your beast mode, but I find that, as I've mentioned a few times, you are a core class, and I'm using that as a bit of a blanket excuse for you. Would have been nice to hide some of the hands a bit more, but for some reason core classes like to just throw the hands to the back of the alt mode and pray no one notices. Shockwave, I think, was notorious for doing it, and it was pretty noticeable. Wheelie did it, if I remember correctly, so it's just a bit of a trend. But it's still not too bad, and going to my comment about tabbing, the arms do tab into the back of the alt mode, so it's not that bad. I mean, it's not a huge, definitely it's not a huge criticism. It's not a make or break type of things, but it would be nice to have a little bit more of that hidden. A little bit more articulation would have been nice, but core class, what can you do? Otherwise, I actually don't really have too much criticisms for your alt mode. You are a step up from your 90s toy, so there's really nothing much I can say other than why do we attach guns to beast modes? It still weirds me out. Now, I know Rattrap will probably be harder to find, but as a modernized take on Rattrap from his 90s incarnation, I would definitely say it's a worthwhile investment to pick one up if you can still find one. Rattrap being part of the Maximal teams, if you were Team Maximal over Team Predacon, would be a worthy addition to a modernized Maximal team. Likewise, if you're collecting all things Beast Wars, then this is definitely a nice modern take of Rattrap for a Beast Wars collection within the 2020s versus the 1990s. Plus, I think Beast Wars had its 25th anniversary a few years ago, so goes to show some time has definitely passed. And as an interesting factoid, I first watched Beast Wars while I was on a holiday in Los Angeles in the 90s. I remember seeing it on the TV the first few times. Completely didn't understand what the whole plot was because some of the names were recycled, and it's like, hang on, that's not Megatron. But I do remember one time going to Target and spotting the Scorponok, not Deluxe, Scorponok Voyager, and would have been Polar Claw Voyager. $5.99 at Target. Kinda wish I picked one of each up back then, knowing what I now know, but whatever. Anyway, overall, yeah, Rattrap's actually been a very solid grab. I quite like him for both his alt mode and his robot mode, so should be fun doing a few shorts. He will be the first of the, I don't remember how many Maximals there are. I feel it was another team of 7. So his initial short will probably just be him, and then the upcoming weeks I'll start filling out the Maximal line. I think we're probably moving into the deluxes now. There should be, I think Cheetor and Air Razor were deluxes, Tigertron, Dinobot, Rhinox, and Primal, I believe, were all Voyagers, so it's actually not too bad. So Maximals were very Voyager heavy, whilst the Predacons were probably more deluxe heavy, with the exception of Inferno and Megatron. So that brings us to an end of the unboxing and review of Core Class Rattrap. Thank you very much for watching this video. Feel free to leave a like, a comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the content. All of this does help support the channel, and I do greatly appreciate it. Extra content can also be found in my Instagram account, link below, as well as keep an eye out on my YouTube community tab. Sometimes I put some quick little posts up there as well. With that being said, stay safe and take care, and I will catch you all in a future video. See ya.